Paulo Costa and Carlos Ulberg walked out of that cage as giants this Saturday night. It was impossible to imagine a more heroic conclusion to UFC 327 in Miami. On one side, we witnessed Carlos Ulberg, a technically flawless warrior, seizing the light heavyweight throne, despite a shattered knee, knocking out the dangerous Jiri Prochazka. On the other, we saw the technical resurrection of Paulo Borrachinha Costa, who silenced every critic by shutting the lights out on a Russian prospect, previously thought to be invincible. But if you're only looking at the results, you're missing the real show. What we witnessed yesterday was the beginning of a complete structural shift in the 205-pound division, led by a Brazilian who has finally learned to dominate not just the octagon, but the complex commercial engine behind the sport itself. To understand the magnitude of Ulberg's victory, we have to talk about Jiri Prochazka. After Alex Pereira vacated the throne, Jiri was undoubtedly the most feared man in the division. He is an unorthodox, unpredictable fighter, gifted with flashy strikes that defy the very logic and physics of combat. Prochazka is that rare breed of athlete who isn't afraid to take a punch to the face. In fact, he seems to feed off the chaos and the pain. When he gets hit, he gets more aggressive, more dangerous, turning every fight into a war of attrition where he usually prevails through sheer force of will and an unbreakable spirit. Everyone knew the score. If Ulberg couldn't find the knockout early, he'd never beat Prochazka on the cards because Jiri thrives where others crumble. But Carlos Ulberg won in the best possible way, showing the cold-blooded composure of a champion by ignoring his injury and capitalizing on the exposed guard of a samurai who lives by the sword. However, Alex "Poatan" Pereira's departure to the heavyweight division left a power vacuum that Ulberg, despite his immense talent, cannot fill alone. Poatan was the absolute king of dominant champion who shattered Magomed Ankalaev before moving up. With him gone, the division regained the unpredictability that MMA fans crave, but it lost its biggest box office anchor. If Poatan had stayed, the next logical step would have been Ulberg in a pure striking masterclass. But let's be real, Ulberg lacks charisma. He doesn't promote, he doesn't create headlines, and he was met with a chorus of boos during the post-fight press conference. Even after his heroic feat, in the world of sports entertainment, being just great is the shortest path to being forgotten. It's in this personality vacuum that Paulo Costa set his master trap. Many thought Costa was finished. The young man we knew during his rise to the Israel Adesanya fight was a fighter dependent on anxiety, raw explosiveness, and a boxing style limited by technical flaws. After bitter losses and weight issues, critics claimed he would just be a high-end gatekeeper for the division. But the Paulo Costa we saw on Saturday is a transformed man and athlete who has reached full martial maturity. We have never seen him this strategic and patient. There was a glaring technical disparity in that cage. He didn't just use brute force. He used biomechanics and tactical study. Costa punished Azamat Mirzakhanov's midsection with surgical precision, investing in body shots that sapped the Russian's foundation and oxygen. He forced his opponent to drop his guard to protect the batter's body, only to set the stage for the fatal head kick that ended the night and the opponent's undefeated streak. There were moments of absolute tension, where the Russian began to find his range in his heavy hands, and where Costa's gas tank seemed to waver under the constant pressure. But maturity spoke louder than fatigue. Costa knew how to suffer, how to circle, and he proved that his time spent maturing has turned him into a real title contender. He demonstrated that the losses of the past didn't break him. They refined him, transforming the brawler into a master of distance and timing. This evolution is what makes him dangerous now. He is no longer a bull charging blindly, but a predator waiting for the fatal mistake. He proved that he still has the fire and the technique to own this division, transitioning from a gatekeeper back to a world-class threat, and he didn't stop there. Outside the cage, his movement was even more brilliant. Costa understood, perhaps better than any other foreign fighter today, that the American market is driven by us versus them narratives. By seeking the empathy of the American public and the public support of figures like Donald Trump, he revived the historic Cold War rivalry that still resonates deeply in the popular imagination. But here is the irony. While Costa is being embraced as an honorary American, he has simultaneously become the most hated fighter in his own home country. In Brazil, his dark humor and constant trolling are often misunderstood. His compatriots often see his antics as a lack of respect for the old-school martial arts values that Brazil holds dear. He is the villain at home, but a superstar abroad. He realized that if his own people wouldn't understand his jokes, he would find an audience that would end. He found it in the heart of the United States. This strategy created a brutal contrast with Carlos Ulberg's reserved, almost robotic demeanor. While the new champion talked about medical recovery and physical therapy terms, Costa talked about dominance, secret juice, and a frontal disrespect for the Sambo and wrestling school of combat. He ignited the fans in a way that Dana White simply cannot ignore from a financial standpoint. My prediction is clear. The UFC will use Ulberg's legitimate injury to keep him on the shelf for a strategic period, while they promote the rivalry that actually generates clicks and pay-per-view sales. Paulo Costa versus Magomed Ankalaev for the interim belt. Dana White knows that time in this sport is short, and Costa's hype window is wide open. It's the perfect narrative for the UFC. You have the technical, stoic Russian seeking redemption after being humbled by Poatan, against the charismatic and provocative Brazilian, who now has the support of the world's largest fan base. Costa is going to jump the line because he offers Dana White something that Ulberg's pure talent cannot deliver, a story that people will pay to see the ending of. He transformed the light heavyweight division into a geopolitical and cultural battlefield, raising the stakes to a personal level that attracts even the casual viewer. The UFC loves when a fight has that extra spice. Paulo served a full banquet for the Las Vegas producers. UFC 327 showed us that while titles are won with sweat and blood in the octagon, the true power of a star belongs to the one who can read the political and social pulse of the sport. Ulberg might have the physical gold around his waist today, but Paulo Costa holds the keys to the kingdom and the control of the narrative the public is hungry for. He proved that the rumors of his decline were premature and that his ability to reinvent himself, switching from the misunderstood villain of Brazil to the adopted hero of America, is his greatest weapon. The secret juice now has the American seal of approval. The technique finally matches the charisma, and the next target already has a nationality assigned. The game has permanently changed for Paulo Costa. He is no longer a supporting character. He is the new axis of the division. The checkmate was delivered before the first punch from Murzakanov even touched his face. The 205-pound division will never be the same, and the sport finally has a protagonist who understands the art of war both inside and outside the cage.